Concluding Chapter 2, Ferdinand's performance remains consistent, with his speed and strength hovering around average. It's becoming apparent that he might trade some growth averages throughout the run. Notably, his defense continues to rise, however, proving beneficial in enduring multiple enemy phases simultaneously. Having discussed his growth in previous chapter, let's transition to the challenges awaiting him in the next chapter. Chapter 3 introduces a welcome respite for our units. Granting a newfound freedom in weekly actions, this flexibility allows for varied choices in enhancing our solo carry unit's capabilities. Additionally, this chapter stands out as one of the easier ones in 3 houses, the end of chapter mission posing minimal challenges for most units. It's also worth mentioning that there's a deployment of 3 green units, comprising of 2 basic knights with modest stats and the formidable Catherine. If left alone, Catherine has the potential of practically soloing the entire map, making her sometimes a bit of an XP hog though. Her impressive base stats with her base class Swordmaster, coupled with the formidable Thunderbrand, position her as a valuable ally. Combine that with the easy enemies and these green units, I don't really see any issues procking up. It should be of note that since we don't have control of the green units, we'll just let them do their own thing, still following within the rules of the solo run. However, before we delve further into our journey, let's focus on the preparations for Chapter 3. In this chapter, we unlock several significant features including Byleth's tutoring and access to the battalion shop. Byleth's tutoring, while somewhat limited in the use case outside of a Byleth solo run, primarily boosts Byleth's weapon ranks, akin to interactions with staff members or in the late game other students. Although we may indulge in a few tutoring sessions for flying skills for instance, we won't heavily rely on this feature. It is noteworthy that if we aim to recruit a character from another house, Byleth's tutoring can enhance the chances of them joining our class, especially for skills that are challenging the grind, such as black and white magic, heavy armor, flying, or riding. Beyond these specific weapon skills, it's important to note we shouldn't really use this feature unless we want to boost initially these mentioned stats. It's more prudent to enhance Byleth's stats through adjutant training. It's more efficient in weapon rank progression. Finally, let's briefly discuss the battalion shop. Unlike the limited selection in the previous chapter, we now have access to a broader array of gambit, with more becoming available as we progress through the game. Although there's an extensive list of battalions we could explore, I'd like to draw attention to the battalion knights for our current focus. At this stage, prioritizing defense is crucial, facilitating easier grinding in early stages. Battalion knights, once leveled to level 5, provide an impressive 4 protection, complemented by 5 might and a robust attacking gambit, Blaze. It's pretty easy to see how this gambit's pretty poggers. While in future considerations, we may explore alternate options, for now, this battalion suits our needs well. With these new features now discussed, excluding the less than ideal advice box mechanic, let's shift our focus to the promised topic mentioned earlier in the previous episode, gardening. It's at this point where gardening truly shines. Besides unlocking the general shop with various seeds later on, this marks a significant turning point for the gardening metagame. Freedom of choice with weekly activities, we can now optimize the gains of this incredible mechanic. If you're not aware, besides flowers, one of the most valuable things you can obtain in the garden is stat boosters. By breeding and fertilizing seeds strategically, you can have a chance of obtaining stat boosters. Many players tend to use the mechanic and randomly get stat boosters every so often. Recently, I came across a video from Sigma Sensei titled How to Always Harvest Stat Boosters in Fire Emblem 3 Houses. In this video, he explains a method to manipulate your luck with stat boosters. By saving before the week starts, or right before hitting explore, you can control your stat booster luck. The game sets your luck for the stat boosters when you initiate the explore phase. To get consistent stat boosters, you can save, plant seeds, save on a different file, skip to the next week, and check for stat boosters. If you get them, you can revert back to the new save and continue the week as normal. If not, just revert back to the save before exploration and restart the whole process. This allows you to reliably get 3 to 4 stat boosters every chapter. providing immense freedom in unit building. Essential to note that any other items than stat boosters are tied to when you collect the resources. If you're dissatisfied with your flower/seed output, you can save before collecting from the garden until you're pleased with the results of the pull. Now we've discussed the amazing mechanics of gardening going forward, I'd also like to mention that what stat boosters I obtain going forward, I'll note the changes in seed combinations as we get things like flower seeds and rarer seeds. This chapter, I elect to maximize Ferdinand's strength stat to ensure he doesn't get growth screwed in the damage department. To maximize the output of strength stat boosters, I deploy 2 mixed herb seeds. Following the garden phase, I decided to maximize the professor level and gardening opportunities, gaining levels in professor rank as well as obtaining 3 strength stat boosters for the following chapter mission. During this time I also continue to increase Ferdinand's heavy armor skill to get seal speed as well as ranks to certify into armor knight for chapter 4. With the pre-chapter prep finished, we move into the chapter 3 mission, Mutiny in the Mist. As mentioned earlier, this chapter poses few challenges aside from the magic based units in the center. The formidable gambit based enemies and the imposing Lord Lenato. Remaining adversaries are comparatively straightforward. For the added utility in the battles spanning over both player and enemy phases, I opted to equip Seal Speed. Additionally, I replaced Tempest Lance with Shatter Slash to apply defense debuffs to the enemies, particularly Armored Knights. In hindsight, this decision may have considered to be a slight oversight, as Tempest Lance would have sufficed. Nevertheless, armed with my enhanced abilities and the new battalion, I venture forth to confront the trials of Chapter 3. The primary challenge of this map lies in the fog of war, obscuring our vision and hindering the progress towards the true objective, eliminating Lord Lenato. The first step to completing this map is dispelling the fog by eliminating the Dark Mage positioned in the middle of the map. Once this is accomplished, the actual commander of the map and his reinforcements are revealed. Navigating through the fog becomes relatively manageable with the assistance of the intermediate green unit. With the also added strategic use of avoid tiles during enemy phase, most of the map is pretty trivial. Swiftly clearing half of the map, we confidently confront the formidable mage, whose difficulty is primarily attributed to Ferdinand's lower resistance. However, even with his lower res, it doesn't seem that he's much better than the other units. After dispatching the mage, the remaining units of the map are unveiled, and additional reinforcements to join the fray. The subsequent phase involves Ferdinand systematically routing the map, eliminating each unit individually, while cautiously avoiding gambit damage. There's a brief period of what I humorously term gambit hell, during which Ferdinand becomes momentarily stunned. Upon freeing him from his entrapment, we proceed to the final boss of the chapter, Lord Lenato. Lord Lenato proves to be one of the easiest bosses in the game, thanks to his 2 methods of dealing effective damage, both being his cavalry and heavy armored type unit. Combine that with his low resistance stat. His stationary position on the heal tile even transforms him into an unexpected XP farm, requiring no elaborate setup. Although I intended to maximize the experience gained from him, a miscalculation in health ranges led to his early demise. Nevertheless, I didn't really need the additional experience, and progressing swiftly was not a hindrance. Chapter 3 concludes with the Ferdinand gaining 2 levels, reaching level 10, and at this point, his specialization in speed and defense remains consistent, with his growth rates aligning closely with his averages, bolstered by the bonuses provided. Ferdinand's evolving into a powerhouse unit, as we unlock the ability to certify for intermediate classes at level 10. I reiterate my plan to guide Ferdinand through various classes, capitalizing on their unique abilities and stat enhancements, as discussed in the previous video. With chapter 3 now concluded, I'd like to mention that I'm actually going to put up a poll. This poll is going to contain the 4 relevant houses, and depending on which house we pick, that will decide which character I'll be playing next. So if you'd like to have some input on the next character analysis, go check out the community post in the description. Thanks all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.